Hey Winfred, how are you, man?
What's up, Harvey?
Let me switch my headphones. Hold on. Give me a sec.
Okay. While you do that, I'm gonna go get my charger for my iPad.
Oh yeah. Let me just same the system. All right, let's see. Hopefully this is working. I've just got some new headphones, so yeah, I'll turn my video on. You can see me. How you been, man?
All right, I'm good. I'm good. I'm sitting over here and multitasking, doing a couple of things.
Yeah.
I had to put my iPad on so I can. It's about to die on me. So
Oh,
how's things
fair.
on the other side of the world?
Man, it's good. It's good. It's a it's a morning here, so I work from home, thankfully, and I can juggle my day. It's good. I've got kids, two little boys that are running around in the background, so you might hear a little bit of disruption, but that's normal.
All right, that's all good.
Hey, Lady Fidelity, we don't know your name. I'm Harvey.
Huh. Oh, I go by Jess. Sorry, I'm a
Jess.
minute late. Yeah.
No, no, not at all. Good to see you. We'll
We
give
just
everyone a
got
couple of
connected, so
minutes.
it's good.
Okay. Hmm.
How you been, Winfred?
I've been doing good. I've been running around. I'm on my days off, but as you know, when you're off at home, you have a lot of stuff to do, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It does get a bit like that, doesn't it? Well, yeah, I've enjoyed the book so far. I've got my copy here.
mine's on
Um,
my iPad. I got an
right.
electronic version.
Yeah, mine's on my phone. I use Kindle, so
Yeah, I got
Fair
it on
enough.
Kindle, and then I transferred it over to my Apple Books, which is for me, it's a lot easier to use.
hmm. Well, I'm hoping this will let me minimize. Let me experiment. Hang on, because I have notes in a different app. Oh, it does. Okay, good. Can you guys still hear and see me?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it should.
Okay, cool. That works, because then I can pull up the highlighted sections. Let's see. There we go. Okay. All right, I'm gonna unminimize since we're not there yet. Hello?
No, yep, yep,
There
we
you
can hear
are.
you.
Oh, you're there? Oh, okay. I thought it froze for a second. Sorry.
No, not at all. Um, well, welcome. I'll give everyone a couple more minutes, but in the meantime, did you have any initial thoughts or comments on chapters 1 to 2, even 3, perhaps?
Um, I was reading the what the devil loves, like the three things the devil loves. I was thinking about how that actually is really prominent nowadays.
Mm,
But other than that, I mean, there was a couple things I highlighted that I thought were kind of cool for the discussion, but also, but yeah, just especially the love and nudity kind of stuck out with me, especially after, like Kanan West brought his wife to the, what was it, the Grammys or something,
Yeah, that was
completely
the
nude.
plan.
And yeah,
did you call
like,
did
and
you
I
call
was
him Kanan West?
K9. I always call him Ye because I
Kanye.
have Kanye. I always call him Ye because I have a hard time pronouncing his name.
Oh, okay. Well, it's interesting
Yeah.
that we might have to start calling him Kanan West. He's getting pretty yeah, he's getting a
He
bit
needs a lot of
crazy.
prayers.
Yeah. Well, and I feel bad for the guy because I think some of it's from his bipolar, but you know, but
A lot of
it
that
doesn't
just yeah.
excuse the behavior. Yeah,
Yeah,
because he's
he's trying to be provocative at the same time. I think a lot of it is just like attention grabbing
yeah,
and
yeah. Well,
it's just
Yeah. I mean, like there's been stuff I've been learning about what he's been doing, like selling a swastika shirt at on a Super Bowl ad, which I didn't know about that until recently, and I was like, ugh.
Getting hectic, isn't it? Just silly
Yeah.
stuff. But, well, we might get going,
Mm,
and people can drop in as they come along. Um,
yeah.
so the outline for today is we're going to start and end with a prayer, and we're going to take a little bit of time to discuss the chapters 1 and 2, and things that surprised us, things that really struck a chord, as well as I've got a couple of prompting questions as well. And I guess the main thing, as general ground rules is, we're going to stay faithful to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and we're going to be, respectful and charitable, and open to contributing. That's really, the three main rules here. Is um, I guess that's it. That's all I ask. And yeah, we can also have little side chats and things going on if you need to once we start adding more and more people.
All right.
Hey
Okay.
Maria, welcome. I think she's just joining. Evening time over there must be.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm glad I'm not the only girl.
No.
Uh,
No
definitely.
offense to
Well,
the two
welcome.
guys, but it's always nice.
I always get to
It's
have the
been
female perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been we had about pretty even response rate for guys and girls. So
Yeah.
um we'll see who else tunes in when they can. Um, and yeah, so we
Mm.
just cover the ground rules, and we were gonna basically jump in. So hopefully I think Jess, Maria, I think all of us have read the chapters. So um
Mhm.
was there anything
Oh,
that yeah,
oh,
go on.
sorry. I just needed to also jump in and say I have to leave for work at 9:30, so if I randomly jump off, that's why. But
No,
uh,
no
I
worries.
figured I should say that now before we got into anything.
No, all good, all good.
Yeah.
And just so you know, right up front, I'm recording this meeting so that we can use some of the content on the YouTube channel and Instagram page. If you don't feel
Okay.
comfortable, just let me know. I'm happy to edit your face out or whatever. But I just ask that.
Put a big
We
piece on it.
yeah
Yeah.
we
I don't mind.
I don't care.
great.
Yeah. Though I don't think anybody on my I don't think I've ever shared my name before, so that would be interesting because I have a little small Catholic Instagram, but yeah, I don't usually share that, so but I don't mind it, I guess.
You
Well,
know,
just first name's all right. We don't have to
Yeah.
go
Well,
any
and
further.
that's what I mean. I've never shared my first name on there, I don't
Oh
think.
yeah, fair enough. Well,
Yeah.
so the first, sorry, chapter was, in the beginning, the anti creativity of Satan, um, and I'll open the floor to discussion. If you guys had anything that really struck a chord with you, especially around the ideas of faith, reason, does anyone have any commentary?
It made me think of Saint Augustine because he believed that uh that like him and a few other saints believed that the battle for between the angels happened before Genesis. Not all of them agree with that, but what was interesting about it though is like and I think kind of Fulton Sheen was alluding to this that the earth's firmament and stuff was completely defaced by the angels who fell. But I'm not 100% sure if he believed that or not, because to be honest, I'm not too familiar with his take on it. But I do know St. Augustine kind of believes something like that, that when, God created light, it separated holiness from the darkness, and cast it out, kind of. Granted, I'm paraphrasing. By a lot, I'm paraphrasing.
One thing I highlighted on my end was that it really it just stuck out to me was it says that then men sinned and the universe was no longer transparent like a window pane. It became opaque like a curtain. And
Mm.
it's just recently that I started like reading the Bible and learning a lot about our faith, because as Catholics, like a lot of us that grow up in the faith, we don't learn much about it, right? And when you actually start studying it, and like I'm doing the Bible in a Year podcast, and oh my God, you learn so much with it. And the reason I was so interested in this book club and this book is because it just it helps you to understand so many things. And that one sentence just stuck out at me so much because it helps you understand how sin works.
Yeah. One of the sentences I highlighted was when God made the universe, he wrote his autograph on everything he created. I just thought that was really brilliant. Um, Especially since like my dad's got a master's degree in biology, ecology, and evolution, and he was an atheist for a while too, but he's come to kind of start to defend the creationist, well, not creationist, the intelligent design standpoint um more and even in here it kind of touches it as it goes on through the chapter where he's talking about where is it? I had it thing here. Let me see. Sorry, one second. I have it here somewhere. Well, I'm sure I'll find it at some point. But basically, later on, he was quoting, uh, or no, he was examining why Darwin's viewpoint was basically wrong. Um, and he mentioned that it explains basically microevolution, but not macroevolution, so like spontaneous creation is what he called it, which is an actual thing in evolution. Like a lot of scientists can't explain the spontaneousness of macroevolution. But my dad always says like he knows the microevolution's at least real because you can take like a bunch of rats and throw them into like an enclosure and you can recreate that over a couple years to show that it actually is a thing, more or less. But like macroevolution, where species just randomly appear out of nowhere, or there's like a new evolutionary advantage that's just spawned out of nowhere and there's no explanation for it. Like that part's not understood yet, and that seems to like my dad especially suggest that there's some type of, intelligent creator. And the fact we have like laws in the universe, the fact that 2 plus 2 always equals 4, all these other things seem to also point to a creator too, which I think that's also what Fulton was kind of getting into when he was talking about how the universe isn't just pure chaos. Like there's definitely a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry. There's definitely like an order to it because he was talking about chaos and order for a little bit there.
Hmm. Definitely,
Yeah.
and the starting point, right?
Yeah.
I read something that people are so okay to accept the virgin birth of the universe at just kind of spontaneously expanding at a Big Bang, which in itself was kind of theorized by a Catholic priest anyway. But the virgin birth of Christ is like not even conceivable to kind of the Western world. So yeah, certainly that macroevolution perspective is really interesting. That there has to be some intelligent design. There has to be some. It's there's too many well established, well thought through designs, I guess. That yeah, just point to that, in my opinion, point to a creator. So, Maria, did you have any lines in the first chapter that stuck out to you?
I had a couple. I just thought it was let's see. Um, yeah, come back to me. I'm still
Okay,
trying to get my head straight.
that's right. I read this yesterday and I didn't use my highlighter. I just bookmarked I just dog-eared the pages that I wanted to refer back to. But one thing that really, I mean, we're talking about in the first chapter about the temptations of Christ, um,
Mhm.
and he outlines clearly that there's three ways that we generally, as mankind, generally get tempted to the flesh, to the mind, or to idols. And then he goes on, well, in the page before that, he goes and quotes Shakespeare actually from uh, Measure for Measure. He says, "'Tis one thing to be tempted, another thing to fall." And that was just typically Shakespearean, very, very poetic. Um, but it's really the temptation, or it's really poignant for me at least, is that in my day-to-day experience, I'm always bombarded with lots of things and lots of temptations to, whether it be lust, whether it be laziness, whether it be focusing on money or or things. And we have a decision to actually go through with that or just catch ourselves and say, no, that's not right. That's not important right now. Um, there's a summum bonum, I guess, to use Bishop Barron's words. So yeah, that was something that I really found. And he found interesting, but he also goes on to say, God, good men are not tempted in the same way as evil men, and the Son of God, who became man, was not tempted in the same way as even a good man. So it was really interesting to see that perspective, is that the journey that we're on, and particularly as trying to be faithful Catholics, is going to be even harder, and even more, like you might have heard, it's probably that we'll be under more spiritual attack um, than, say, someone who's lukewarm or not really interested in the faith.
But maybe
Yeah.
more spiritual attack, but it's interesting because like it doesn't mean that we're gonna fall easier, Like I truly
Mm.
believe that if we advance in vocation, there has to be necessarily, because God is greater than Satan, he's gonna assign more angels to help us. Like I just believe that there are more saints that come to our aid. Like he's not
Of
just gonna be
course.
like, oop, like see until the scales tip over, like see how
Yeah.
much she's gonna do before she falls. And I think that's a state that a lot of people um that's one of the things that the devil really has us believing. Like the more we advance in holiness, the harder he's going to tempt us. And it's like, no, he doesn't gain more power because we come closer to Christ. Like that's not how it works, like that's not what he's going to
Yeah.
do. That's not the way he's going to do it. And even because Fulton Sheen here talks about how like the devil maybe didn't even know that Christ was God. Maybe he thought that he was someone that God assigned. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah.
I'd never thought about it that way. And so he talks about like how he like changes his temptation. And so like one of the things he doesn't talk about it here, but there are other priests that talk about it, is that the devil cannot read our mind. He just reads um, how we react to things. He reads how we get anger, like our near temptation to sin. And so it's really important to be able to catch ourselves before there was someone on Instagram that was like, it's not the devil trying to tempt you. You just need a snack and a nap. And it's like, no, wait, hold up though. Like the devil is a jerk. Like he's gonna attack you when you're at your weakest. And so if you're more likely to get angry when you're hungry, then feed your body well so you don't go hungry, like learn how to fast so you're not falling into that. And so I don't know. I thought it was really interesting that like if the devil is being really smart about the way that he is tempting us, then we need to be really smart about the way that we are preparing for these temptations that we know are going to come anyways. What do you guys think?
Well, and I agree with you, especially about the part where it seems like the devil doesn't realize that Jesus is necessarily God or not, like he's not sure. Because actually, St. Maximilian Kolbe would also probably agree with that. Because I'm part of the Militia of the Immaculata, the group that Kolbe started. And in the book that we got to do the preparation for the consecration of Mother Mary, it broke down some of his like theology that he would teach. And in it, he was explaining that the reason Satan attacked Eve was because he thought Eve was Mary. And he knew enough from, like, the initial battle where God told the angels his plan, and then, he refused and fell. He knew God was going to bring about um, the Messiah slash himself, through a woman, and that was the reason he attacked Eve. So I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't sure if Jesus was just another prophet or if it really was, the Son of God. Granted, there was also like other demoniac encounters in the Bible where they did blatantly say who Jesus was. So I'm not entirely sure. Do you know what I mean? Because maybe at that point they had just gotten enough um I guess intel to be pretty sure, you know. But I do find that kind of interesting because Saint Maximilian Kolbe says that the devil has a very very specific hatred towards woman because of the battle he has between like himself and Mother Mary, because Mother Mary was part of the reason he fell. Because according to Saint Maximilian Kolbe, he didn't want to serve like he could semi deal with a god that was both human and man, but he refused to serve flat out a human. And he would have been having to serve Mother Mary as Queen of Heaven, and if you read the books by oh gosh, what's her name? The woman that wrote Mystical City of God. I'm blanking on what her name is right now.
Mary of
Catholic,
Agree.
yeah.
Yeah, yes. So in her books there, she actually says that Satan wanted to replace Mary and tried to force God to do basically what he was going to do with Mary with him. And but God found that to be disgusting, obviously. So like, and it even further proved that Satan had something mentally wrong with him, which kind of also goes back to like what Fulton Sheen said about the schizophrenic mind, kind of as a sign of the demonic. And that's not to say that if you have schizophrenia that you are demonically possessed. I just want to pump the brakes there a little bit because like I actually have a friend whose son is schizophrenic, and actually going through this to pull, because I was going to initially talk about that and pull up more evidence for that too, while we were talking, and I accidentally stumbled upon the Guild of Saint Benedict Joseph Labouré last night, which I didn't even know that existed while I was trying to search for this, and I guess the guild came about because the Duff family had a schizophrenic son, and they were trying to go ahead and offer help for other kids that were like him, and it turned into a whole ministry dedicated to helping those with mental illness or brain disorders, which I thought was really cool. So if you haven't heard of it, check it out. But like, anyway, back to what I was saying. The church does teach that mental illness can mental illness and brain disorders can occur on their own, and they can actually be part of the cross God gives you, which is a difficult thing to swallow, but it's true. But back to what Fulton Sheen was saying, he wasn't necessarily saying that the devil is per se schizophrenic. He was saying, I think what he more meant was that his mind was fractured, and you do see that mind fracturing in areas where the devil's working, in my opinion. The fact like our my generation can't even tell the difference between a man and a woman anymore. Like that's a pretty obvious sign to me. That like these things that should be common sense and just reality are now part of like this unreality. And you see like Satan basically with his uncreativity remaking what God already made
Yeah,
by encouraging people to change their bodies or to like present as a different sex. And by the way, I used to identify as non-binary, so I'm not coming after anyone. I'm just saying that because I know this is going to be on YouTube. I fully agree with the church's teaching that, all of that is wrong and that we are called to live to be our true authentic selves. And I've been through that whole scenario, so I understand
Yeah.
it. So I don't, when I say these things, I'm not meaning to attack anyone. I'm just telling the truth. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I see that and I've been through that struggle. And the devil's doing kind of a good job with that lately.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think you're saying really interesting things. That's something later on in the book, but like to pull it back to the first two chapters, I want to talk more about the uncreativity of Satan and like his hate for women, because one of the things that we learn about, like in just the church history, logic, and theology of the body, is that ability of women to carry life, to be able to transform spaces, right? So, like, you have like the poem, like, you give a woman a house, like, she gives you a home, you give a woman, like sperm, she gives you a baby, and not through our own power, but through our feminine genius and the way that, like, God created women. And so, like, it makes sense that Satan has this hate for this transforming power that is very unique to women, and men have these wonderful, beautiful, beautiful qualities that we should definitely foster. But when we're talking about this uncreativity, it makes sense for the devil to attack women. In what you were saying about the uncreativity, I just think that's really interesting. And in chapter 1, I have this book, the paperback, so it's on my page 11. He talks about how there is order enough in the cosmos to discover the mind behind it. And so that kind of like speaks to how faith is reasonable, right? It's what you were saying, like, it does, faith doesn't ask us to do these crazy jumps. Like, at some point you have to realize that it takes a lot more faith to be an atheist and believe
Yeah.
all these crazy things that the world is proposing than to believe in God and to believe in this order and say, like, okay, it makes sense that if you were born a woman, you are a woman. And if you don't feel like woman, there is something to heal. Like, there is something that we need to address, and it's important to make excuse me, that distinction, that just because there is mental health, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's demonic. But we see this fracturing, this um almost like this break from the original plan, that again is something that we need to heal, not because it's demonic per se, but it's broken from the original plan, which is this order that God had in the beginning. But also something, just to go back to what we were talking about, when he talks about that, I can't remember the word that he uses, but he talks about like how Satan was like cast out from heaven, and it was like a very simple term, like a simple word. I can't remember what it was, but it was almost like it wasn't hard for God to just like throw him off. Like, they're not on the same level, like sometimes we
Yeah.
think like, oh, it's God versus the devil, and it's like, no, like, it's God, and like the devil is like kind of down here. And like, that's why he hates the Virgin Mary so much, because she's a little girl. Like, she was a little girl when all this happened, so like, God, instead of like sending his archangels and all the, he sends a little girl to fight her off. Like, I'd be mad too. Like, anyways, that's on creativity. So I appreciate everything you said. I thought it was spot on.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I like what you said too.
Wonderful. Yeah, the whole journey into the work ideology and stuff. Maybe it'd be, when we get to that chapter, yeah, it'd be great to hear a bit about your story. Yes, and well, if you feel comfortable, obviously.
Oh,
Um,
I don't mind. I've already talked a little bit about it on my Instagram because I felt like I was called to because I went through quite a doozy. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to distract more from the topic.
all right. Well, you might hear my kids screaming in the background,
You're
so
good.
apologies for that. Someone's having a meltdown.
Oh,
That
Yeah. So yeah, it always happens when I'm on video calls. Um, One thing that was actually in the introduction that Fulton Sheen said, and it refers to kind of Genesis and God saying, well, Exodus, God defines himself as I am who I am. And Satan then kind of by definition defines himself as I am who am not. And it's that anti-creativity. It was a really interesting point, that he cannot actually create anything. He can only destroy. The devil, diabolos, means to divide. And I guess listening to Father Ripperger, if I want to go deep cuts, he was saying that God actually split the devil's psyche into three: Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Satan. And as part of the whole world of demons, I guess, is like it's almost like an inversion of what is true, good, and beautiful, where we have the Holy Trinity, and Satan wanting to be God, essentially, become God, is punished by saying, okay, you now have three kind of separate personalities. I've watched a lot of those exorcism interviews where they talk a little bit about actually meeting Satan, so it's a little confronting. But there was one other thing that Father Ripperger was saying, and what he was saying was, one of the other demons that he had confronted was actually charged. His role when he was created was to serve the Virgin Mary, and he was given, they're given a choice when they were created instantaneously to choose whether they will serve or not serve, and that particular demon, who was an angel at the time, didn't want to share the Virgin Mary with God. She was so beautiful and so perfect that he didn't want to share her. And it was a really interesting perspective, that, just touching on what we were talking about, Maria, about the beauty of a lady and womanhood, I guess, in that sense, is it's almost like, he's repulsed by one that mortal could be more powerful than him. And then two, it's almost a bit of jealousy or pride that you're so beautiful and you're just a mortal.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because have you guys studied theology of the body by any chance? Have you guys looked into theology of the body? St. John
Not
Paul?
in any depth.
I've studied some of it, and actually a lot of it helped me when I was struggling with like the body dysmorphia end of things. It really did, because it really helped, because one of the things that really helped me was this understanding that like there's no like recipe to be a woman necessarily, like because all the woman saints are different in their own ways, whereas I think what caused a huge disconnect for me as a kid was they had these really strict, especially in the 90s, strict labeling of gender roles. And not saying gender roles are bad, but saying the gender role that was presented to me, where you had to be this, hot blonde, always dressing in pink, skinny bimbo to be a woman. Like, no woman identifies that. Look, you know what I mean? And so it causes like confusion. And I feel like it's because that's how the devil wants women to be seen. Because, she's not smart, she's not dressing modestly, like she's sleeping around. Because that's usually the type of role model you got, like as a kid. And they talk about this too, that a lot of what turns young women off is this environment, and I was one of these women too, this environment of like this over sexual like take on culture, where women are just from the get-go told that you're basically a sex object from like even really young. And it's like, and that you have to like keep up a performance. And I feel bad because there's like these girls now on like Instagram and TikTok who are 12, 9, all buying makeup from Sephora, which was when I was younger. You didn't go to Sephora until you were like in your 20s. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's an adult store, and they're like spending
made to feel like
hundreds
that's
of
the only
dollars.
way that they can get attention.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
said that
So,
they're made to feel like that's the only way they can get attention. That's the right way to get
Yeah,
attention.
to get attention, to be loved, to be seen. Yeah.
well, and they're being taught that being a woman is a performance. It's
Right.
not an innate thing. And that's what, for me, drew like a huge, I guess, fracturing in my mind at the time when I was younger, because I just didn't feel that way. Like, do you know what I mean? And I thought
Yeah.
something was wrong with me.
Yeah. No, and I love that you're saying that because it's true, and not just about women, but about men too. And so when he's
Yeah.
talking in the first page of chapter 1, he's almost talking about like the sacramentality of creation, about how like creation itself starts to reveal God. And theology of the body is that, right? Like when they say in the beginning, like we were created man and woman, and so like together, that unity of man and woman, that community is what reveals God more clearly to us than just woman by herself or like man by himself. And what you're talking about, that like over sexualization, is more of that like gunk that covers up our the sacramentality of our bodies, of like what we can reveal as living in community, because it does, right? When a woman is over sexualized, she pulls away. And now we're seeing all of this, like I would 100% rather be with a bear than with a man in the middle of the woods. And it's like, okay, wait, hold on. Like, no, like
Yeah.
a man who loves well, has such a life giving sight, like when you are in the presence of a man who is godly, like it's healing, and it same goes for
Hmm.
the woman, right? Like when you are in the presence of a woman who is a woman, not in the way that she dresses, not in the way that she um, talks, not in the way that she puts makeup, but in the way that she gives life just by being there. Like that's what reveals God's true original plan. That's what reveals, there's like original plan of creation, of like being able to be like God. And it's almost like that anti-schizophrenic society, right? Because it's like this cohesiveness of like, oh whoa, like there are things that we can work together. like
Yeah.
like creation does make sense. Like we don't have to be in the woods with a bear. Like we can live together. But I think it's so interesting because we have gotten to a point where I think only women can heal women enough until we're able to approach men right now. You know what I
Well,
mean? Like, it feels like
and
society is just so broken, and it's because that anti-sacramentality. Like there's so much gunk about like what a woman is, that I don't know. I think it's interesting. What do you guys think?
no, I agree with you. Well, and I was gonna say too, I do think some of the healing does come from men though, because like my husband has actually been very healing for me. But I also want to say too, like there's like it's the media makes it out to be like bad to be a woman because of all those things I listed before, but then they also make it out bad to be a man because you're like over controlling and like there's toxic masculinity and all this other stuff. And like that's the reason when I was dealing with that, I didn't feel like either one of those things, and I just identified as non-binary, which meant I'm neither. Like, do you know what I mean?
Sorry,
And I
let me.
had this very
Mm,
Yeah,
fractured understanding of like both sexes
yeah,
and that it was scary. And there's a lot of kids that are like that now, and
mhm,
especially young boys. Like, I actually feel
yeah,
awful for young boys. Um,
just
there's not a lot of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
can I interject? Just because
mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
using the free version of Zoom, this meeting's
Oh,
about to
Oh,
end. So what I'll do is
oh,
I'm going to paste a new link, um,
okay.
and if we
okay.
can just move to that one. But sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt.
Yeah.
yeah, good.
All
No,
right,
you're good. Where are you posting the link?
I'll put it in the chat here, as well. Or if you like, if it's easier, I'll just send it on Instagram. Um,
I was gonna say, I'm not sure how to get to the chat. Hang on. Chat. It might be better to just send that to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'll just send it on Instagram. Um,
Okay.
just bear with me one
Is
second.
it like ending right now? What?
It should end in about a minute or less.
Oh, okay.
So sorry.
Okay, you're good.
Just yeah, because I've had this happen before, and I don't want to cut you off in the middle of something really good.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
Sorry. What I'll do is I'll end this call and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
All right.
See you soon.
Well, I'll Oh,